Oh, this is JC one more time. I guess I'm on a roll, so I may just as well go ahead and uh, read chapter number two. I somehow or other this morning I just started writing, and it didn't take very long to write chapter number two. I hope you enjoy it. Frankly, I it's a little bit strange, but who knows what goes on in the minds of writers, authors, and retired truck drivers and 78-year-old gentlemen, if such be the case. Anyhow, without further ado, I'll go ahead now and I'll read chapter two of the book I named Todd. Chapter two, Todd. It was 3:35 and a picture of his dream began to form in his mind. And he was starting to be aware of why he had come awake so suddenly, and why he felt slightly nauseous. A recollection of the screaming of tires skidding on pavement, of the sound of a tremendous crash, shattering glass and metal grinding and tearing on more metal, and of a woman's scream and a man's moans quickly began to come alive in his memory. It was so terrible he tried to stop the vision from forming, to go away and not be in his dream. But that wouldn't happen. In a few more seconds, he would be completely aware of what he already knew was more than just a nightmare. That day, his parents had invited his uncle and aunt, Carl and Teresa Daniels, to spend a few days with them here in their home. Todd had never seen his aunt and uncle, and he was looking forward to it in pleasant anticipation. They lived in a city some ways from here and accepted the invitation. They would leave that evening after Carl got off work. Oh, and as a side note, right now, according to my grandfather's clock, it's turning 11 a.m. I think you can hear the dings. Okay, back to the story. Now a wave of sadness washed over Todd. He knew he would never meet his father's big brother, Uncle Carl, nor his Aunt Teresa, at least not in this lifetime. Todd had finished his homeschooling early today. He had started in public school at age 3. His reading and writing at age 3 was already as good as anyone's, even some adults, and better than most. His parents had chosen to keep him out of and away from the public as much as possible. At age 3, he was as big and as well developed both physically and mentally as most 10-year-olds. So his mother lied about his age so he could begin school. But after the first semester, because he had learned so quickly and began to be so far ahead of his classmates in everything, both academically and physically, it became obvious he could not stay in public school with regular children. So he was taken out of school, and his mother attempted to homeschool him. Because of her own limited education of not even finishing high school, this was a job she was ill equipped to do. And so she took on the task of self-schooling, so he took on the task of self-schooling himself. He had no problem at all with the endeavor. Young Todd's features were pleasant. He was a handsome lad, but outwardly seemed to be quite shy. His parents were aware that he intentionally lived very much within himself, and this they accepted as normal for him. He understood their reluctance to let him out socially. There would be too many questions which they could not answer. At age 5, Todd was already very advanced physically. He could easily pass for a teenager. On a very rare occasion, he accompanied his father to a baseball game, being held by two of the local teams. His father told him that he and his oldest brother, Carl, had been very close as youngsters and had attended many ball games together. He was always happy and excited when he spoke of his big brother and their times together. The ball players were all in their late teens or early 20s, and they were very baseball wise. Todd and his father were sitting in the left field bleachers, 6 rows up. A right-handed batter came to the plate, and he took his stance, making several practice swings in anticipation of the first pitch. The pitcher began his windup and started his throw. Without thinking, Todd shouted, "I got it," and leaned forward with outstretched hands. Then they heard the sharp crack of the bat hitting the ball, and all watched as the ball arched its way up and over directly into the reaching hands of Todd Daniels. Only then did he realize what had happened. what he had done, the slip he had made. A small boy sitting next to him asked, "How did you know that?" He looked at the boy and, forcing a grin, said, "Just a lucky guess." Todd handed the ball to the boy, and Todd and Mr. Daniels left the first and only baseball game they would ever attend together. Todd sat in bed now, regretting what he knew had just happened after this dream, regretting he would never meet his aunt and uncle, regretting how he knew this would affect his parents, especially his father, and at this moment, regretting that for whatever the reason was, he could know things no one else could know, see things no one else could see before they happened. Todd got out of bed and slipped his trousers and t-shirt on and walked downstairs to the living room. He sat on the sofa, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees and cradling his face in his hands. He waited for the telephone to ring. At 5:21, the phone rang. He listened to it ring 3 times, then stopped ringing. He knew his father had picked it up and answered it. In a moment, he heard the shrill cry of his mother's voice, "Oh, no, no, oh, God, no." Then silence. In a scant moment, Todd heard a wrenching sob coming from the depths of his father's being, and another and another. Todd covered his ears with his hands to block the tremendous sadness he could feel and hear coming from his father. In this instant, Todd knew his father would never be the same, and this family's life had just changed forever. This is the end of chapter 2. Bummer. This is JC. Thank you very much.